Hello there, my name is Mark Great, and today we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the rice management dashboard with a specific focus on the grain moisture index. So as we go from that late grain development stage, physiological maturity around 26%, at what period do we look at draining, or what tools do we have to help us with that drainage decision to optimise the harvest moisture at around that 18 to 22%, so that we have the biggest opportunity to ensure we get the highest quality. That 18 to 22% figure has been bandied around a bit as a figure to get to our optimum quality. Below 18%, we start to get cracks, and particularly below 15, if moisture interferes with the grain, so a rain event or whatever, is when we do hit quality. And I want to quality issues. I want to show you a real life example of that from last season. There were a lot of quality challenges last season. There was a lot of heat at various times, and then followed by a very rapid dry down, and then rain events throughout the harvest period. Very challenging year for quality. This is the distribution of all truckloads delivered for that season for Matilda across the whole of our rice growing area. You can see the highest load. So this is a representative from 12,500 loads. The highest frequency of loads was still around that 7.5 through to 8.5 quality score, even though there were significant challenges for the CY25 year. I've overlaid that with moisture content at various quality parameters or quality intervals. Everything below 4 quality score hit average moisture of 14.5%, and below 5, below 6, below 7, and so on. If we look at the loads around that 7.5 to 8.5 quality score, and from really 8 onwards, we were looking around that 18 through to 22% moisture. The best quality score we got was around 9.5, and it had a moisture of the mid-20s, and equally the lowest quality score had a moisture of 8.3. So there is a direct relationship, and the biggest influence that you can have on your quality score at this period of the season is your harvest moisture and getting that drainage decision right. So today we're going to look at the moisture indice on our index and what it can tell us and how we can get the information for it to manage for that optimum drainage decision. I've just got 3 dashboards to show you here in order of a dashboard that doesn't yet have a grain moisture curve, 2 to 1 that's a bit more mature. So you can follow the progression of your crop itself. So if we look particularly initially at this one in particular, just a quick rundown of the dashboard. So all years back to 2018, all farms associated with that year, all paddocks associated with that farm for that year, that you then have your indexes and the date of your last image, which will default to your last good image. We'll concentrate on the index first. The nitrogen index and the NDVI, looking at your vegetative phase of your crop. Nitrogen uptake, looking as we hit into PI and those top dressing decisions at PI. Now we're looking to focus on grain moisture. Just going to pause there for a bit and bring you up to this question mark period. Question mark tab up here. If we click on that, that takes us to an explanation of everything that's on the dashboard. There's a 12-minute video here delivered by James Brinkoff, Professor James Brinkoff, who developed the dashboard and has put it all together. Excellent explanatory notes there and so on. But equally, every tab that you will click on, what it means and how it's brought about. So we're going to look at particularly the growth curves or the indexes. I mentioned NDVI and N uptake as vegetative N index. And then N uptake is into your PI period. So we're just going to focus on the grain moisture here. So I just want to have a quick look at this. The grain moisture predictions start from the first image 15 days after the predicted flowering date. Now the model forecasts for up to 28 days past that most recent image when using temperature forecast data. And then you get a 22% moisture prediction date, which is estimated by finding the date where the prediction crosses that 22% line. Now I will look at these particular dashboards. This is one where looking at grain moisture, we actually don't have a moisture prediction yet. Flowering here was the 6th of February. 15 days after flowering is around the 21st of February. The first good image from the 21st of February we actually don't have a good image is the problem. So where we have a plus, we have a good image. Where we have a cross, we don't have a good image. So we really are going back to old school here. We have to just check the crop until we do get a good image happening. And but rest assured, at this period in time, given that flowering date early February, these crops are still pretty bright green. Compare that to one that's a little bit more advanced. That's the dashboard help page. Grain moisture, and again, we've just got one image showing the growth curve, which just happens to be that 15 days after flowering, so that 23rd of February. That'll kick off at about 40%. Now, at 40%, your crop is very green. A lot of fertilised ovum, which will pop but aren't even milky yet, from milky through to milky dough. As there's a shape of this curve, even though there's no more imagery, and that's the shape that is based on the predictions, or the predictions of that are based on the forecasted weather data, 14-day weather forecast plus a 14-day historical climate data back to 2000. If you hover over this map, this curve, it'll show you a date and a moisture prediction for that date. You can follow that down now as it goes down, and as we get more imagery and as time marches on, it will finally cross that 22% line, which is right down here, and then you will get a moisture prediction for that 22% line. So we'll go to one for a little bit more advanced, again looking at grain moisture. And you can see here we have a number of imageries. We do have a 22% line for this image as of the 20th of March. Today is the 5th of March, just as a comparison. And you can see here, as we get good imagery, this prediction will adjust or fine-tune itself to that specific paddock. We've only had 3 good images for this block. We do have a 22% line, and again, we can follow that line down to get what at this particular day, what would you expect that moisture to be. The thing also to look out for is the variation within the paddock. So it's all very well saying we're going to drain at a certain date. We want to be trafficable at 22%. Only you know your paddock, whether it's 3 weeks or at 10 days from the time you pull the plug to the time it's trafficable, depending on great soil types, layout, sowing method, and so on, paddock preparation. But there are zones within the paddock that can also influence that decision. And those zones, if you have a significant difference in those paddocks, then you need to sort of, 1, be aware of that, and 2, work out how we can manage for that. So an example here, the 22% moisture date is the 20th of March. In that same block, we have moistures from 18.5 through to 23. So 5% difference in that paddock. To pinpoint where those areas are, we look at the map. Now, the map takes a little bit to load, crunching a lot of data at this point. The initial map that comes up will be a photo, which is just a similar photo as Google Earth uses. The map, the image itself will overlay. And then, so that's the photo that was taken as of the 20th of February. And then all of the numbers or the data associated with that image will then overlay. You can see here, we're saturated out. So our moisture here ranges from 14 to 30. We know from our growth curve as of the 20th of February, which is what this image is showing, we're at 35, and our map only goes up to 30. So everything's saturated out. If we wanted to see a variation or where that moisture dry down varies within a paddock, a little tip, we can change this figure. And if we want to bring this up to 40, for example, you'll notice you've got 14, 22, 40. If you click out of that, the midpoint changes to be in the middle of those two. And you can see as it's loading the variation then within that block. Then if you want to take a sample, we can come in, actually get a sample for an AGS to monitor a sample, a moisture sample. We need about 1.5 litres of grain. Just strip it off the head, and take it into AGS, and they'll give you a reading on the spot as per truckload. Try and take what the header will take. So reach down into the canopy, make sure you strip the green grains off as well as the ripe grains, and go to various zones and note where those zones are so that you can compare it back to the dashboard. Now, remember, this was taken the 20th of Feb, so it's now, what is it, 8 days, so it's now 13 days old. Unfortunately, we haven't had good imagery since. And we can click on that point, but you click on this point to get an indication of where it's at. And you'll notice it loading up here. That's the point it was taken at. As it loads up, that's zone 1 of 5 within that whole block. The grain moisture average within that zone is 31.8. And at that particular point, we're looking at 32.3. So we sampled this the other day, about a week after that image was taken, and we were about 3% different to the dashboard. Given that week, that's probably about a 3% dry down. So it's actually pretty good, particularly given these high moistures. I would certainly encourage you to sample a paddy, particularly where you don't have updated imagery, just to get a good handle on where you sit at. As I said, you need to be trafficable at 22%. At 26%, that grain is physiological mature, and it doesn't need any standing water. It's going to dry down regardless what the weather does. So if it's hot, our instinct is to keep that water on. But if you're beyond 26%, it's just going to dry down faster if it turns hot, which is a lot of the issues that happened in the 25 season. So I'd certainly encourage you to sample, get a really good handle on where your paddock is at. You can work backwards from your 22% moisture date, saying, I know my dry down is around 0.4 or 0.5 a day. We will tell you that at Rice Extension. You can also calculate that from this curve. You can calculate it at 16th of February, we're at 39%. At 11th of March, we're at 26%. Days by the percentage difference, and you know the dry down rate is about 0.4 to 0.5% a day. So, and we work backwards from there and go, well, I know it takes me 2 weeks to get back on the paddock after I pull the plug. I want to therefore drain when the paddock sits around 26%, 27%, whatever is the issue with you. If you have paddocks or bays within a paddock that are significantly different to other bays, and it can be managed separately, that will certainly help you increase your quality score. I sampled one the other day that had a 10% difference between the top and the bottom bays. The top bay was a lot drier, and he is aiming to drain those top few bays probably 10 days before the bottom few bays, and drain and harvest and manage them separately. If there's a way you can do that, obviously practicalities get in the way, but if there is a way you can do that and you're aware where those zones are and what that moisture is doing, that will hold you in a lot better stead with your quality score. Now, Rice Extension will be racing around doing a lot of sampling at this time of year. We will let you know what that sampling entails. We will update you with the dashboard as much as we possibly can. Encourage you to get out and sample yourselves and let us know what that sample is so we can spread that to the wider community and again, compare that to the dashboard. And if you have any issues, as always, please give us a call and we're happy to go through any of this with you and go from there. All the best for the harvest. We know it's going to be a great quality year. We'll talk soon.